Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, and you know what day it is. Of course, today we're contributor Ron Placone joins the show where we trash the Democrats most of the time. Seems to be a recurring theme. But anyway, welcome to the show, Ron.
Howdy, howdy, Jeff. Good to see you, man.
Yep. How's your weekend?
My weekend was spectacular. And yesterday I went to the beach, which was really cool. We've had a little bit of downtime in the studio over at the Jimmy Dore Show. So we've been doing other things. We have a lot of live show footage and stuff like that. But I had a little bit of time off the studio, so I've been doing other things. And me and my girlfriend have a thing now. We'd like to eventually live closer to the water. So every time we go to the beach somewhere here in California, we'll go to a different beach town to kind of check it out and see, could we ever live here? And I mean, it's more for fun than anything else, because this is something that's down the road, like moving closer to the water. But just for the feather in our cap, we'll check out a different area and be like, maybe this will be where we eventually move. And then we even look at rental prices and stuff like that.
And get immediately
in a way, it's
discouraged.
counterproductive, because by the time we would do this, anything could have changed.
Sure.
The area could have been totally gentrified or re-gentrified or whatever. But I don't know. It's fun for us.
Or sea level rise would put it underwater.
Right. It could just be underwater. We don't fucking know.
Gone. Climate change.
But how was your weekend, Jeff?
It was actually kind of terrible because I injured myself. So.
I'm really sorry. What did you do?
I have a reoccurring back issue.
You're not supposed to put your thumb up your ass while masturbating.
No,
Jeff.
I know
At
that.
your age,
I know that.
You should know that.
It's, some people just use it as an aid. Okay, I'm just saying.
I understand that that's your thing, Jeff, but you have to be careful. You have to use both hands if you're going to do that.
We'll have this conversation later. We'll have this
Remember
conversation.
that intervention we had in '97? That was
97. I was a little too young, just to let you know.
Oh no, you weren't.
Oh,
Jeff.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you weren't. No, you weren't.
This is getting creepy.
You think
guys.
so? You're a late bloomer.
This is getting creepy, guys. I'm just saying.
No, Jeff, it's normal. All right.
No.
You're the only one that's creeped out. The rest of us are just concerned.
No, seriously though, I have a reoccurring issue with my back.
Sorry, buddy.
And I get muscle spasms every once in a while, and I get laid out for the weekend, or sometimes a week. This one wasn't too bad, but I spent half my weekend on fucking muscle relaxers, so it was not fun.
I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah,
sad.
That sucks, man. I had a muscle spasm once, and it was from, I used to travel around 45 weeks a year, you know that, and I would occasionally get those spasms in my neck just from being in a car for so long. So,
sure.
I feel you, buddy. Those are rough. Those are really rough.
And it goes back to when I used to work in manufacturing. So, and all the bending and lifting and all the bullshit that comes along with that. So, yeah, that's where that's from. So, not fun. Speaking of healthcare related issues, you know what's happening right now? They're having a vote to whether or not to open debate on repealing the ACA, right? Repealing Obamacare. Again. And I think actually, from what I could tell, they haven't all the Republicans haven't voted for it yet. So, actually, you know what? There's 50 yes and 2 no. So it looks like they can go forward with this. So, that's not good. No. This is just an open debate. Well, what's the debate? Trump Care was going to get rid of insurance for 22 million people. Where's the debate? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it. I heard it. It's apparently even worse than that now.
Is it? Well, I think for a straight repeal, yeah.
For a straight repeal, it would be 36 million over a certain amount of time.
With most
repeal
of them,
and replace, it would still be in the 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still a disaster. So where's unless the debate involves, hey, instead of taking away insurance for 22 million people or at the worst 36 million people from a straight repeal, hey, let's talk about expanding Medicare.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be the debate you'd like to have?
I mean, if they open it up to public opinion, that could be a good thing because I mean, it's got about at this point about 12% approval rating amidst the citizenry of this country, which it's pretty amazing that we live in a democracy, yet a bill that has about 12% of people liking it might become a law. That sounds democratic to me. I don't know about you, Jeff, but yeah. that's democratic as shit.
But again, I have to point out that this is just an open debate on it. So they're not actually voting to repeal Obamacare yet. So I think some of the people who are like, yeah, sure, we'll vote to talk about it, are still some of the Republicans. Because I mean, you look at some of the people like what is it, Shelley Capito or something like that. Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Dean Heller, Rob Portman. They're like, hey, we got problems with the repeal bill, but we're going to open debate anyway. So I don't know. Those people might still waffle when it comes to the actual, like, hey, let's repeal this.
Right.
Or, get rid of it. But they're still voted to open debate. And, of course, John McCain, also one of those people who voted with the rest of the Republicans to and this is a guy who just got diagnosed with brain cancer, who should know how important insurance is. Unless he's opening debate just to say, hey, you know what? I've had a revelation. Let's make sure that everybody has coverage for insurance. That'd be great. But we don't know if he's going to go in that direction. After all, I did see some reports. I don't know if you saw this, Ron, where there's a resident. There's a big article about it, I think probably a couple of years ago, where this person wrote to John McCain, hey, my husband's got cancer. I think it was either skin cancer or something along that line.
He told him to move.
Yeah. We would like you to help us get insurance. And McCain's like, you should probably move. We're not going to help you here in Arizona. You're on your own. Guys.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things, I certainly don't wish ill on anybody. But, when you saw these people getting out their violins for John McCain, it's like, I'm not going to play my violin for the guy either. I wish him a recovery. But, I hope that he learned something from this and maybe see some of the errors of his ways.
Thing is, that is the most basic human decency, is to be like, hey, I hope you don't die from cancer.
Right, and that's fine, and I just expressed that myself. But these people that I'm referring to, the people that are like, oh, he's, don't politicize this, don't that. Like no, like it's okay to say, I don't wish ill on the guy, but I also wish we lived in a country where everyone had his health insurance.
Yeah, that right there.
It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that.
Yeah, that right there is basic human decency, saying, hey, you know what? I don't want this person to die. And guess what? I don't want anybody to die from cancer.
Right.
If we can help it, if we can make sure that they get treatment and insurance, that would be a wonderful thing. That's basic human kindness.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah.
And sadly, there seems to be a lot of people who lack that basic human decency.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the people that were like, oh, I hope he dies. I'm not saying that's the way to go. I'm not.
No, I know that.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
We are. We're definitely on the same page on that issue. But, yeah, more details about this, too. Mike Pence, again, had to break a tie. So, there's that. Wow, Mike Pence getting a lot of usage out of his powers to break ties. It's twice so far. Gee, I wonder how many more it's going to happen in the next 4 years.
Yeah,
disaster. Right. Okay. Do you want to go to some stories or keep talking about healthcare?
Why don't we go to some stories, man? I got a heart out at once. So.
Sure. All right. Let's start out with an interesting, survey written by Jonathan Capehart. This is interesting. Now, there are some Clinton supporters out there that are still continuing to spread the Bernie bro narrative. That, that it's just a white, educated, college, sexist Bernie bro. People who look like me and Ron, right? Lily white guys who didn't want to vote for Clinton because we know, like, the women, right? Well, I've got another piece of evidence to debunk that bullshit, and it comes from Jonathan Capehart of the Washington Post. Now, he wrote about this in the Miami Herald last week. Now, he starts off by saying that what we clearly saw in focus groups is that they don't regret what they did. Now, what was he talking about? Is he talking about the white Bernie bros? Actually, no. He's actually talking about millennial people of color who decided that they weren't going to vote for Clinton. They were actually going to either stay home or vote for a third party, like somebody, I don't know, Jill Stein, who's, third party, or whoever that guy, Aleppo, yeah, right? Aleppo guy. I can't even remember his
Gary
name right now.
Johnson.
Gary Johnson, thank you. I had just had my own Aleppo moment.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, so the article goes to somebody named Cornell Belcher, which is a great last name, by the way. Says a guy who has also a great last name. Now, he's the president of Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies. And basically, he did a poll for the DNC under Howard Dean and both of Barack Obama's campaigns for the White House. So what he said and found in this survey is that these millennial people of color, right, that overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders, and then when it was Clinton's turn in the general election, they decided we're going to stay home or we're going to vote for third parties because we can't stand the Democrats. We can't stand Hillary Clinton. These people did it because, well, again, they were tired of the establishment politics. And this guy's saying, what Belcher's saying, is that these people are the new swing voters in the Democratic Party, which is, they're the people that the Democratic Party should be trying to win over. Now, that's very interesting. So, like, Ron, you've seen the media narrative about, like, oh, we should go after the Obama-Clinton voters or whatever, or, Obama-Trump, whatever. The people that flipped over from Obama's coalition over to Donald Trump, people who were in the suburbs, who would have voted for Mitt Romney or something like that. Those are the people that we should be going after, so says some of these establishment articles. Well, this guy's saying, no, that's not it. We should be going after millennial people of color. That's our progressive base.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the rural white people.
Yeah, this was said to me before by somebody who's not a big fan of irony. They said, you white Bernie bros need to get over identity politics.
Huh.
And, I mean, the thing about everything that's happened is, and I'm so sick of talking about Hillary Clinton. I would love it if she just went away and just would be a grandma, and I wish her all the best. She has nothing positive to offer our political landscape right now. All she would possibly do is hurt the left. That's just the truth. I mean, this isn't me trying to hate on her or anything. That's just the reality of the situation. Her brand of politics, and I'm reading the book Shattered right now, her brand of politics is dated, it's over, it's tired, it's a recipe for failure. It worked in the early 90s. It's not going to work today. And in the Clinton blame game, among the groups that she blamed were millennial feminists even. She blamed millennial feminists. It's not a matter of getting those moderates that were behind Obama and not behind her. It's a matter of exciting the base again.
Right.
Obama excited progressives because we saw him as a healthy compromise. And I can speak for myself here. In 2008, I didn't support Obama in the primary. I supported Dennis Kucinich. But I was shown through that primary season that the pulse of the country wasn't with Dennis Kucinich yet, but it was with Barack Obama, a guy who was definitely a lot more moderate, not as moderate as I realized. I didn't realize – I considered him a straight-out moderate. I didn't realize he was a conservative. He showed those true colors throughout the 8 years. But he was the healthy compromise we needed at the time. The 2016 election and where we're at now, because that's really only what matters, where we're at now, it shows us that the pulse of the country is ready for a Green New Deal. They're ready for single payer. They're ready for a true progressive platform. 80% of the Democrats are with Bernie Sanders. And when I say the Democrats, I don't mean the establishment. I mean the people that still identify with the party. They're with Bernie Sanders. People are cheering for single-payer healthcare in red areas because they're coming around to the fact that, yes, healthcare should be a right in the richest country in the world. People want living wages. People want something to be done by out-of-control student loan debt. When people say it's time to unite, I don't interpret that as shut the fuck up and take the crumbs that the establishment that's compromised by special interests is throwing to you. I take that as it's time to put forth a bold new platform that historically is on our side, meaning it's time for our next FDR. And it's time to turn on the people slowly coming around to that we can't settle for anything less, because real change happens when a status quo demonstrates that it's broken. If Donald Trump isn't your shining light that our status quo is broken, well then guess what? We're going to get more Trumps, and they're going to be a lot fucking worse. Kid Rock is running for Senate, everybody. The system's broken, and it's time for a radical progressive revolution. And if anyone tells you the baby steps thing, they're wrong this time. There's going to be other times where they're going to be right, where we got to move slow. But we're ready for a sharp left turn. And when people tell you we're ready for a sharp left turn, they're not being purists. They're not being Bernie bros. They're not being hateful towards any group. They're recognizing the situation that we're in. They're dealing with the reality that's been dealt to them. And, you know, that's what we need to unite behind. Anything less, we're going to continue losing.
And look, it's not just white Bernie bros like Ron over there that's saying this. They actually talked to people of color, African Americans. And now this survey was in Fort Lauderdale, right? Now, according to Belcher, the people that he talked to are so outraged at the broken politics they see on both sides. The Republican Party is broken. The Democratic Party is broken. The establishment itself is broken. That's why we have a Donald Trump, as you were saying, that they think that them protesting their vote makes both parties have to pay attention. Well, hey, look, they are paying attention. Unfortunately, they're ignoring the very group that's calling out for that attention. And they're only focusing on people that look like us and pointing to us as the problem. And so that's the issue. They've essentially, what they've done, Ron, is they've whitewashed all those young, progressive millennials of color. You don't exist. That's what they're saying. You don't exist. You're, you know, the white people, the white Bernie bros, you're the reason that we lost. Comey's the reason we lost. Russia's the reason we lost. Didn't have anything to do with our policies or a lack of a clear message. That's what they're saying. And look, if I were a person of color, I would be very, very offended. Like, hey, don't whitewash me. Okay, don't put, you know, don't put me in the category of you know, of the so-called Bernie bro, which actually is bullshit. Okay,
it's complete
don't
bullshit.
Do that.
Yeah, and we know that. You know that. I know that. We all know that.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to sidetrack too much here, but something worth throwing in there. You want to know a policy reality that actually is responsible for the loss? The fucking Electoral College. A racist piece of policy that has roots in slavery that should have been gone years ago. You know, I mean, Hillary won the popular vote by 3 million. She won the popular vote, yet she's not in office. And this is the second time in 20 years the popular vote winner, every time a Democrat, got fucked over by this archaic system.
That's
why getting rid of the Electoral College isn't in the Democratic platform? And I know that's a long haul. That's going to take some work. It's going to take a constitutional amendment. But when you put it in the platform, it means that it's part of your, to quote Tom Perez, it's part of your values. Having that as something, you know what? This is a thing of the past. And moving forward, we got to get rid of this because it's not democratic. It's not, you know, its roots are wrong. And it's time to say goodbye to this. I mean, I think that would increase voter turnout. I think it would invigorate a lot of people. I think it would be more democratic because it would be. Why none of the fingers have been pointed there is beyond me.
You know,
but you know, I guess there's easier scapegoats out there.
Yeah, it's not in the platform the same for the same reason that superdelegates are also not in the platform. They want to have an archaic institution of elites deciding who gets elected where. Now, on Trump, those same elites, they really dropped the ball on that one. Because, boy, is the Trump administration turned out to be an absolute disaster, just like we were saying that it would be. But I guess the one positive thing is that it is pointing out how broken our system is. And, you know, when that's a positive, by the way, you know we're in trouble. But I've got a quote from another person of color interviewed in this survey. He says, "You're damn right, I don't have any loyalty to the Democrats. If Republicans want to get real about shit that's happening in my community, I would vote for every one of them. Then maybe Democrats would take us seriously too." And so that goes to what I think. And look, it's obvious, I'm not a person of color, and I don't want to pretend to speak for them or anything like that. But I do think the Democratic Party has taken the African American vote for granted. I don't know if you would agree with that. Maybe people in our audience, you know, who are people of color, do you agree or disagree with that statement? But I believe that it is true, unless I see, you know, evidence to the contrary. But I think it's one of those things where the Republicans, I mean, are so much worse on those issues that the Democratic Party's like, what, are you going to vote for those racists over there? We're your only chance. We're the only ones you got. So you have to be with us, and we don't really have to do anything or all that much for you, because we're going to get your vote anyway. So why not reach out to the, you know, the like white suburban vote that was going to vote for Republicans anyway, instead of focusing on young millennial people of color who are far more progressive than anybody seems to know or care about.
Bingo. Yeah, Jeff, I don't disagree with that statement. The only thing I would maybe add to it is that I think it applies to pretty much all minority groups.
Sure.
I think they take all of those votes for granted. And I think they take I think they take progressives for granted.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, that's why when they were asked to come up with a slogan, first they came up with, "Have you seen the other guys?"
Yep.
And then they came up with, a Papa John slogan, which I loved. There was some brilliant irony there, Jeff, that no one's talking about, because at this point, the Democrats and the Republicans really aren't that different. One of the few things where the Democrats are different is that they're further along when it comes to social issues like gay rights and abortion.
Yeah.
So I have an idea. Let's have a slogan where we quote a homophobic pizza owner. That's real smart, Democrats.
Awesome.
Real smart. I know a lot of people didn't see that connection, but I couldn't help but notice it.
I think a lot of people actually saw that connection.
You think?
I think the hordes of people mocking them on Twitter about it probably noticed. Yeah. And what is it?
I know I'm not the only one. I'm just saying.
You're not the only one. No, it's a better deal, better jobs, better wages, or better skills, better wages, Papa John's. And for only $5 more, you can add a side to it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, people saw the Papa John's connection right away. Like, people saw the Papa John's connection right away. It's just like, yeah, and that guy's a homophobe. Like,
you know what's super sad about that, though, other than the fact that Papa John's a huge homophobe and all that stuff, and their pizza's terrible.
Yeah, their pizza does suck.
It sucks badly.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's pretty shitty.
No, I forgot the point that I was going to make. I was sidetracked by the horribleness of their pizza. It's easy to be sidetracked by that. But at the same time, okay, so let's get a final quote in here from Belcher. Now, he says, "We spend a lot of time talking about blue-collar white voters and Reagan Democrats. Reagan Democrats are dead. They're dead. They're dead. Like the Mandelas, right? Who believes effort should be placed on winning back millennials of color and young progressive whites?" That's actually what he believes. It was in the article. He says, "Bringing that coalition back together would seem to make a lot more sense to me than trying to, in fact, bring in voters who have not been voting Democrat for quite some time." So look, this Belcher guy gets it. Why doesn't the rest of the party get it?
Mm-hmm.
If they ever want to win, they've got to realize that they need to go left and actually embrace popular policies.
Yeah, and I think the question that we're all faced with, Jeff, and this kind of goes back to the whole electoral college thing that we brought up. Do they want to win? And sometimes I really wrestle with that. I think we all do. Yeah. Do they really want to win? Because, if the donor gravy train is still there, a lot of the folks with the power, I think, are very content with that. So, you really have to ask yourself, do they truly want to win?
Because either way, they end up getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's do one more Democratic Party story. Let's talk about Chuck Schumer. Yay. One of our favorite people, right?
Yeah, he's great.
Wonderful. Now, Chuck Schumer has recently said some things in the past week that's raised a few eyebrows. So let's start with his quote on the Clinton loss. Now, according to the Washington Post, Schumer is not repeating Clinton's talking point of, hey, it's the Russia, it's Comey, it's all that stuff, that's why we lost. Instead, he's actually pointing the finger directly at Clinton. Oh, that's very interesting. He says that when you lose to somebody who has 40% popularity, you don't blame other things. Comey, Russia, you blame yourself. But wait, isn't Chuck Schumer also to blame for pushing Hillary Clinton? I mean, I would also point the blame at him and the rest of the establishment for pushing an also incredibly unpopular candidate to go against another unpopular candidate when we could have had a candidate that was the most popular politician in America and still is. Just saying. Now, he says, so what did we do wrong? People didn't know what we stood for, just that we were against Trump and still believe that. I think he's actually partly right. A lot of people don't know what the Democrats stand for, other than, of course, corporate-friendly policies and centrist positions. For example, 10-10 minimum wage, right? Sure, it's an increase, but it's a little bit of an increase, and actually it's a safe increase. Because, the donors in the fast food industry, they'll still bitch, but that's part of the theater, right? But eventually they would go along with something like that. The Republicans, of course, would all complain and, oh my God, how dare you raise the minimum wage? It's going to hurt. The same thing that they've been doing since the whole idea of a minimum wage came into existence. But eventually it was going to get 10-10, and then people were going to be like, hey, right? At least we got something out of it, even though it was not very much. That's the kind of policies the Democrats had pushed for years, especially under President Obama. Not exactly bold, right? Sure, it's a little bit of a step up, but it's kind of mealy-mouthed. It's kind of milquetoast, pretty centrist, right? It's that, again, that incrementalism. Oh, we gotta take baby steps. We can't do that. It'll upset the markets too much if we raise minimum wage within, 2 years, 3 years? Which is what some of the plans are anyway. So, I mean, that's just one of the examples. So, my question is, though, is Chuck Schumer trying to get it? Does he actually get it, or is this just more pandering without substance?
That's a great question. The optimists in me want to say, oh, they're waking up. The pessimist in me is saying, no, this is just more empty pandering. Chuck Schumer also woke up recently and was like, oh, Democrats need an economic message. Holy shit, who'd have thought?
I know, right?
I think next week Chuck Schumer's going to come out and he's going to say, hey, guys, news update. Turns out climate change is really fucking serious. I think that's going to happen next. But, so he's a little late to the party on this is what I'm saying. And the one cool thing is the fact that he's saying this. There are people in the Democratic Party that I think really do want to come around to the more progressive point of view, but are kind of, pumping the brakes for whatever reason. Maybe they have more trust in the establishment. Well, now when you can say, hey, man, this came straight from the horse's mouth, there's a better chance at winning over more people into the message that we need a bold, progressive platform. Because, hey, this is Chuck Schumer saying this. This isn't, Bernie Bros saying this or whatever. This is Chuck Schumer, one of the quote-unquote leaders of the party, you look at this guy, and he is about as inspiring as Bob Dole on Ambient as far as leadership goes. But he's the guy at the top, and even he's saying this stuff. So, hopefully people can take these sound bites and run with them. Hopefully, people can adopt that. And, people with more power can kind of run with that, like a Tulsi Gabbard or an Elizabeth Warren, who finally came out in favor of single payer, and, of course, a Bernie Sanders. So it's good that he's saying it no matter what. Whether his intentions are genuine, I don't think we know. I think time will tell. But, it's still a good thing that he's saying it because, we got that documentation now.
Yeah. Look, I'm gonna go the more cynical route, and I've got a couple of reasons why. Um, so let's go to Pelosi, who in a separate interview said, "Oh, I agree with Chuck Schumer," but she cautioned that, quote, "This is not a course correction, but it's a presentation correction." Oh,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
all
I
about
saw that.
messaging. We just got to
Yeah.
message better. It's not at all about the policy. Our policies are great. We just got to message better. And of course, their solution, as we alluded to in the last segment, is their brand new slogan: a better deal, better jobs, better skills, better wages. And for an extra $3, you get a side of garlic bread.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's like their messaging does suck.
it does
I mean,
suck.
It is fucking terrible.
It is terrible.
But yeah, you need better policies
Exactly.
too.
And
You can't skate around the fight for 15. You need to embrace it. You can't use right-wing talking points against single-payer healthcare. You have to embrace single-payer healthcare. You need to have a Green New Deal, and there's policies out there for it. You need to do something about the crippling student loan debt. Otherwise, education is going to be something for the elite and nobody else. And, Democrats, that's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt you, Democrats. If you care or not, we don't know, but that's going to hurt you. So, yeah, I mean, she's not wrong when she says that the messaging's terrible.
Right.
It is, but, if you think the policy doesn't need any adjustments, you are tragically out of touch. And Nancy Pelosi has proven time and time again that she is tragically out of touch. You know who responded to that tweet and respectfully disagreed? Stephen Jaffe, the guy trying to primary her out. So you know what? If you're in the San Francisco area, support that guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple weeks ago at the Live Jimmy Dore show in San Francisco. He's a brilliant guy. And I'd love to see him primary her out. It's going to be a lot of work, but I wish him all the best, and I really hope he does. And he responded to that tweet.
So here's another thing from Schumer. Now, he said the new agenda, quote, is not about moving the party left or right. Oh, at least we're not going right. No, that's good. It's not about appealing to one coalition or another. He said a strong, sharp-edged, populist, bold economic message appeals to the Obama coalition and the people who voted for Trump. Former Democrats who voted for Trump. So, part of that's okay. I like the strong, sharp-edged, bold economic message. Great. So let's see that reflected in policy. Now, on policy grounds, he said on Sunday that single payer is on the table. He actually told ABC's George Stephanopoulos, quote, "We're going to look at broader things for healthcare. Single payer is one of them. Many things are on the table. Medicare for people above 55 is on the table. A buy-in to Medicare is on the table. A buy-in to Medicaid is on the table. On the broader issues, we will start examining them once we stabilize the healthcare system." So, look, there's a lot of different parts to that, and some of them give me hope, but the rest of them make me super cynical. What gives me hope is that, well, hey, we're having a conversation about Medicaid being on the table, a buy-in to Medicaid and a buy-in to Medicare and single payer for everybody. That's great. Let's have those conversations. Let's talk about that. And let's go through the pros and cons of the policy. And, you'll find with Medicare for All that there are a lot of pros and that we should be going in that direction today. But, of course, what gets me all cynical is, well, everything's on the table, and we got to wait before we stabilize the healthcare system. It's got to be stable. Well, there's no telling when that's going to be. And besides, as long as we have a profit-centered, market-based healthcare system, things will never really be stable. You see what I'm saying? So I think it's sort of like we're going to say the right things, but it's kind of wrapped up in this centrist, mealy-mouthed establishment code, right? The namby-pamby, as he said. He said, we were too cautious, we were too namby-pamby on policy, but that answer right there, I'm afraid, was a little namby-pamby, in my opinion.
Well, and you know what? Let's read between the lines here at this answer, too. They're basically confirming that if we would have had a public option, which we should have had, which, we had a Democratic majority and still didn't get.
Yeah.
If we would have had that public option, we would not be in this mess in the first place. And I'm not trying to blame, like one sole group. There's a lot of people at fault here, but, you can't overlook the fact that, the Obama administration allowed this bill to be completely gutted while there was a Democratic majority. And had we stood by the public option and not compromised on it, had Obama stood with the people instead of being so concerned with compromising with the insurance industries and with Republicans, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. And we would, at the very least, have the ACA with a public option. That would be in place.
Right. But unfortunately, President Obama was really focused on getting any sort of compromise with the centrist, blue dog Democrats, who tend to not win re-election very well, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly, because why vote Republican light when you can vote Republican, right? Too busy to trying to get those Republican votes when no Republican votes went towards the Affordable Care Act at all. And they've been spending 7 years trying to destroy it. And they might actually succeed here soon, and that's probably the worst part of it. So that's why you don't go for half measures. That's why you go for the, you go for the full loaf, right? Because right now what we've ended up with is crumbs. So that's why we need something strong. Now, if Chuck Schumer is serious, which, again, there's a lot of distrust on this. I don't trust him. I'm pretty sure you don't trust him. Then he would say, not only is Medicare for all on the table, we're going to aggressively push for it, and we're going to aggressively poll the American people and see what they feel about it. See how they feel about a Medicare for all system. And then we're going to follow what the American people want. Mm-hmm. Are they doing that? Yeah. Because what is it? 57% of Americans think a single payer system, they actually want a single payer system. So, but yet they're not pushing that. So it just seems like it's just more of the same and good flowery language, but they still don't quite get it. Mm-hmm. That's my thoughts on it. All right. So let's go from going after the Democrats and actually go after the Republicans for once. We almost never do these Republican segments anymore. Too focused on trying to fix the party, right?
Yeah, well, it's just assumed that the Republicans are a circus because they are.
They are.
We just kind of take that as a given at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what happens when the CBO gives you less than favorable scoring on your policies? Well, if you're a Republican, you try to get rid of it. Because, of course. That's exactly what House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows is trying to do. According to The Hill, Meadows wants to eliminate 89 positions from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office staff and require the office to, instead of doing its own research, by the way, which is what it does right now, in order to score a policy, they go internally and they go and they crunch the numbers, they run and see what's going to happen from a certain policy, who it's going to benefit, who it's going to hurt, and what's going to happen. And then they release those numbers publicly. Well, the Republicans under Mark Meadows, his proposal basically is like, no, let's get rid of the internal team and let's just have them source all the information from our think tanks. Mm-hmm. Lovely. He says they ought to be aggregators. There are plenty of think tanks out there, according to a statement at a National Press Club event. Yes, think tanks. Think tanks that have, no possible ulterior motive due to their sources of funding. Like, I don't know, all these different, take Heritage Foundation, which happens to be funded by the Koch brothers. They would be totally impartial when it comes to a score on Obamacare, right? Of course they wouldn't. They wouldn't. In an amendment to the budget deal, Meadows said they would cut $15 million of funding in CBO staff members responsible for estimating the budgetary costs of bills in Congress and have them carry out such duties solely by facilitating and assimilating scoring data compiled by the Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute. But to be fair, they included two left-wing think tanks, the Brookings Institution and the Urban Institute, which I think are more centrist establishment think tanks that lean a little bit to the left. Now, the proposal follows after a series of CBO reports predicted that tens of millions of people would become uninsured under various Republican plans. So they saw that and were like, we don't like that score. We're just going to get rid of you. We're not going to change our policies so that they're better. No, our policies will still suck. We're just getting rid of the scores. We don't like the score. Let's get rid of the scoreboard. That's amazing, man. This guy's like a Scooby-Doo villain. We would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you goddamn CBO people.
Right. I mean, yeah. And these think tanks, and there's a lot of them, the Heritage, the Acton Institute, they exist solely to do the mental gymnastics necessary to justify these horrific policies. I mean, that's what they're around for.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you're ignoring this CBO score. I mean, I've said it. This whole proposal that the right has, I mean, the CBO score should just be a Mr. Yuck sticker with the word "don't" above it in all caps. Because, I mean, this policy is terrible. It's stripped. It's an anti-healthcare bill. It's not a healthcare bill. It's an anti-healthcare bill. So how can you in any way justify it? Well, you justify it by, appealing to the small elite group of Americans that get a tax break from this thing. And you justify it through think tank propaganda, which is what this is. It is by the book, dictionary definition propaganda.
And that's the people that they want doing the scoring. So they put out propaganda now. Just wait until they actually have control over the CBO. Well, the CBO number says that we'll have a net billion jobs from this healthcare bill that gives giant tax cuts for the rich. Hey, that's what the CBO says. What are you going to do? You're going to listen to math, or are you going to listen to the CBO? Who's going to run the numbers if we don't have something that's nonpartisan? So, and that's the big problem with this. And again, this is admitting that, yeah, we can't really do better on policy grounds, so we're just going to, eliminate this government agency or gut it, and then leave the numbers to our crony friends. That are going to give us all positive scores, like on our tax cut bill that's coming up, right? They want to cut taxes massively for the rich, for the donors, the same donors that donate to the think tanks. And that's who they want controlling scoring that tax cut. And, of course, they're going to say all sorts of nice stuff, like, oh, it's going to save the average American family lots and lots of money, when in actuality, the latest Trump tax plan will save the average American family $40. And the average wealthy family, like somewhere right $931,000 a year. So that's a big difference. So this is the kind of thing that they're trying to do, and of course we should not be surprised by this. So there's that on the Republicans. Let's go to the next story. We can add beer to the list of things that millennials have cruelly murdered, including diamonds, golf, marriage, Applebee's, and essentially everything good and holy in America. That's right. Another brilliant
I'm proud
piece.
of the Applebee's one.
We are proud
of
of
that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know. I'm proud of golf. You know why? Because I have a terrible swing.
You know what? I do not like golf either, Jeff. Whenever someone asks me what I think about golf, I say, watch the movie Falling Down or see the George Carlin bit, and that's what I think about golf.
Yeah,
Not a fan.
Ironically, I bludgeoned golf with a golf club. So that's the height of irony in this one.
That's a fuck of a weekend.
So what I'm saying is I'm pointing to another brilliant piece in Business Insider that's titled, "Millennials Are Killing Beer." Oh, for Christ's sakes. Now, in this article, they cite CNBC and a Goldman Sachs survey that recently downgraded both Boston Beer Company and Constellation Brand on the data that younger consumers, they're just not drinking as much alcohol as older people. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because we know alcohol is kind of bad for us, and marijuana is actually better when compared to alcohol. And then in a lot of places that it's starting to get legalized recreationally. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. And that the younger people who do drink, they prefer wine and spirits. Chief analyst Freda Zhu wrote, "We view the shift in penetration and consumption trends as driven by a shift in preferences in the younger cohorts." And let me just say, penetration. I'm a child. Now, beer penetration fell 1% from 2016 to 2017, while both wine and spirits were unmoved, according to the ratings. Goldman Sachs now expects the overall beer market to decline by 0.7% in 2017. 0.7% is killing the beer industry. Somebody tell them that millennials, we have had a 20% decrease in our wages from one generation to the other. We make 20% less than our parents did. How is that not considered killing the millennial generation? I'm kind of curious about that.
Well, not only that, but it's the millennial generation that's kind of, I mean, it's not exclusively millennials, but a lot of these microbrews and stuff like that, those are like millennials that are starting those businesses. I mean, you know, I mean, there's in my hometown, for instance, of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there's a bunch of like old fire halls that have been closed down for years that are now microbrews that a bunch of 20s and 30s young adults started. So, I think that's like, I think this analysis overlooks a couple issues where it's like, well, millennials are actually responsible for the craft beer craze because that's us that are flocking to it. Because like another thing that people are like, well, millennials are ruining beer because, you know, a lot of beer enthusiasts are really into the IPAs right now, and the general beer drinker is kind of off put by the IPAs right now. So all these microbrewers are making these IPAs, and you know, people aren't migrating to them. And it's like, well, wait a second, they wouldn't be making them if there wasn't some group that was consuming them, first of all, and second of all, like, a lot of microbreweries that succeed, they do so because they have a lot of different options. So if an IPA is not your thing, then you got to talk to, you know, the person that's at that microbrew because they're not going to be there if they don't know beer. And you got to find what's more yours. I mean, I'm not a big IPA guy, but I like a lot of wheat beers. I like a lot of Hefeweizen style beers. You know, I know what I like, and I'll ask questions. And I'll experiment, right? And so yeah, I think that anyone claiming the millennials are killing the beer industry, it's I don't know how you can make that claim. I mean, given the participation we have in the beer industry. So, well, yeah, I think that's kind of a weirdly sourced analysis to make. Yeah, and by weirdly sourced, I mean incomplete and wrong.
Yeah, it's just another example of, you know, we see a downtrend like millennials decide to make a different choice, like, oh, we don't want to drink, you know, Natty Ice anymore or Natty Light, which is fucking terrible. We don't want to drink that stuff. We actually want to drink something that's decent. And they're like, oh my God, can you see the they're just killing the beer industry by a 0.7% drop. You've got to be shitting me.
Yeah, and I'd be curious how exactly they measured that. Yeah, I mean, maybe if they're measuring it in just Natty, you know, like the large breweries, like the domestic piss water market. Sorry, I couldn't come up with a better. Then yeah, we're probably hurting it because we're not drinking that stuff as much because you know, we're migrating more towards the microbrews and stuff that. You know,
I mean, especially in bigger places, right, where there's a lot of millennials present, like in the bigger cities, LA, you know, for example, that's probably got a really healthy microbrewery market.
Yeah, we do, man. And I mean, pretty much all the cities in the countries do at this point. I mean, when I was in Nashville, there was Yazoo, which was, it was pretty much all millennials running that place. And still is, to my knowledge. So, and that's also a reflection of economic times. I mean, usually in tough economic times, stuff like pre-prohibition style drinking, like old fashions, speakeasy type stuff, decent wines, craft beers, that makes a resurgence. And I think it's because people's leisure dollars are a bit strapped. So they're going to be like, well, if I'm going to go out and drinking, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to really enjoy it. You know, I'm not just going to, you know, throw back a bunch of shitty domestic brews and get hammered. I'm going to drink well because I only get to do this so much. So yeah, I mean, I think to point the finger at millennials is just straight up wrong.
Well, it's funny. I live in an area where that's what people do, right? That's what a lot of people do. They just go and they drink, you know, again, Natty Light. I mean, that's the beer of choice that I see around here. Even though Michigan does have a strong, at least from my point of view, and maybe I'm not correct in assuming this, but there's a lot of microbrews here in Michigan that are great.
I'm pretty sure, and I mean, don't quote me on this, but like someone can double check me in the comments or something. But I want to say that Grand Rapids has among the most microbreweries of any other town, like per capita or whatever.
Right.
I think Grand Rapids is either like it's definitely up there, and I think it might be like first. I think it's like Grand Rapids and like Asheville, North Carolina. A lot of these like kind of smaller collegey type towns. Those are the ones that have the most, like per capita or whatever, out of any other place in the country. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely safe to say, whether it's number one or not, I'm not, I'm not quite sure.
But it's up there.
It's up there, and it's very safe to say that yeah, Michigan has a very healthy microbrewery scene or economy, or however you want to put it.
Right, but I think it's in the more rural areas. I think that I don't see a lot of, people carrying cases of, microbrewed beer. It's more like we're just going to get the cheapest shit that we can and get fucking hammered.
Right.
But that's the area that I grew up in, and that's, my whole experience with that. But, I've always been kind of a poor guy, so what can I say, being in that area. Now, you did mention something that's interesting. It's a product of our economic times, right? Well, interesting thing about this is that I know you were here when we talked about avocado toast. And I remember that was fun. Well, it turns out that it's not because we're the death of beer, according to them, a 0.7% decrease is somehow the death of beer. It's not because of avocado toast. There's a reason that, or I should say, a recent study by the Federal Reserve found that student loans are actually one of the reasons that millennials aren't buying homes, and consequently all these other things. For example, diamonds, or they're getting married, or not as much beer, or not going golfing as much, is because we have all this money that we owe for our education. Add, low wages to the mix, higher costs of living, especially in areas that actually have good jobs. And, if you look at all those factors together, you might actually figure out that, oh, right, millennials we're kind of fucked. And we've had to change our habits to suit our new economic reality, which means no diamonds, no owning homes, putting off getting married, and not going fucking golfing, and maybe not, buying as much beer. Maybe has something to do with it.
Yeah, but, it's always easier to scapegoat the younger generation. I mean, this is nothing new. It's just we've been fucked over particularly hard. That's not to say that the Gen Xers didn't get the short end of the stick, too. They did. But, I would say it's gotten even worse and worse. And it's to the point of crisis. But, if you're an older generation, you either can recognize that crisis, or you can, scapegoat the younger generation. And there's always a tendency to do the latter. And there's a bias in the media to do the latter, because all of these for-profit cable news companies, they know that the average age of their demographic is about 61 years old plus. So that's who they're trying to appeal to and keep smiling.
Pretty much. All right. Oh, God, we've got one story in like 4 minutes. Think we can do it?
It's got to be 4 minutes, man. I'm a hard out at one.
All right. We'll do our best. There's a new study out that cast doubt on the claims that American electric utilities didn't actually know that fossil fuels had an impact on the climate. Really? Now, what's interesting is that study says, no, they actually did know. The Energy and Policy Institute study, citing industry documents, found that utilities and industry groups that were aiming to investigate the effects of carbon dioxide as early as the 1970s. They actually found that, oh my God, there was an effect. Well, crap, now we have to hide it. And so later on, after they did their own studies and found out that what they were doing, since they were in the energy industry, these utilities and utility groups, after they found out the truth that their business model is harming the climate and exacerbating climate change, and could have, quote, climate change possible over the next 30 years may significantly affect the electric utility industry. After they found that out, they decided, well, you know what? We don't care. We're going to do we're going to worry about our own bottom line. And before I get to you, Ron, for your response. The industry heard warnings about climate change as early as 1968 when a science advisor to President Johnson told an EEI convention that carbon dioxide emissions could produce major consequences on the climate, possibly even triggering catastrophic effects such as have occurred from time to time in the past. So they knew, and so did ExxonMobil, which around the same time was doing its own studies. But again, they just like ExxonMobil, they said, well, we actually don't care about that. What we care about is maintaining our bottom line. So what we're going to do is that we're just going to essentially muddy the waters on climate change, and we're going to make sure that nobody holds us accountable for any of that by spreading pseudoscience and funding these think tanks and stuff that go out and basically try to debunk actual science on this issue.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, they knew of consequences, so they started a campaign that's still going to this day to dismiss climate change, and they're still at it. And now they're in a situation where they are destroying our environment, and they're not handling any of the costs. We are, the citizens are. So you tell me who's really getting the corporate welfare here?
Right.
It's these industries. It's the oil and gas companies. They are not bearing any of the costs of the destruction they're doing. They're bearing none of it. They're getting these violation slaps on the wrist that are barely. I mean, it's like a parking ticket for the average person at best. The violations and the fines they get. Meanwhile, they're making our environment their playground and their profit center at the expense of our water wells and the expense of our air and the expense of our greenhouse gas emissions. And they don't give a shit, and they're not being held accountable. And it is corrupt beyond measure.
Mm-hmm. And it's further evidence of why we need something to combat that. I thought about this real quick. There was a women's march. There was a march for healthcare, I believe. And there was also a march for science, which was great. We should also have a march for clean energy. But beyond that, we should take all those people that were involved in these marches and actually get them out there to, not only vote, but also to run for office so that we can get politicians in there and an energized voting base that's going to vote in favor of clean energy. And I think that's the only way we're going to be able to change.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
All right.
Yeah, we should have a Green New Deal march.
Totally. All right. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Contributor Ron Pacone. You can check him out all the different places that he's on. Okay. Oh, well, thank you, man. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Yep. Kind of blanked out on there of where you can find Ron, but he does his live stream, live.me. You'll see him on Twitter if you follow him at Ron Pacone. So there's that. I'm going to get out of here as well. Thank you guys for watching Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. You can like and subscribe to the channel. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/TYT Nation. You can see Ron again next Tuesday, but we'll be back with another show right here tomorrow, same time, same place. So check it out. All right. Thanks, everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.